Welcome to Hey, It's Carly Rae's Book Club. This is Book Hour where authors talk their latest novels, reveal their writing process, and chat all things books. I'm your host, Carly Rae, here with bestselling author Susannah Marren. Welcome, Susannah. I'm so excited to have you. Tell us where you're joining us from.
I'm joining you from New York City, and I'm so happy to be a part of your book hour.
Yeah, now tell us more about your latest mystery novel, Maribel's Shadow.
So Maribel's Shadow is a novel about three adult daughters and their mother. It takes place in Palm Beach, and it was important to me that it happens in Palm Beach because, as we know, Palm Beach is a beautiful, rarefied, privileged community, and yet what happens to this family, to these sisters and their mother, is all about the emotional longing and the secrets that women keep. So whatever happens here could happen anywhere, although the higher you rise, the harder you fall.
Now, as you mentioned, the story follows sisters Maribel, Caroline, and Raleigh Burrows. What made you want to bring in this sisterly dynamic to the storyline?
Well, in real time, with my real name, Susan Shapiro Barish, I'm a gender professor, and I've written 13 nonfiction women's issue books. And then I write my fiction under Susannah Marren. So the reason that it mattered to me was it reflects a study that I've been doing. I started it many years ago on sisters. And the sister bond is really, really complex. And the family systems where we're situated among a family of sisters really plays out in behavior. And so I wanted to take a look at this mother. Now, another one of my studies has been on mothers and daughters. And so I really wanted to look at how a mother who can be devious can really influence her daughters. So this is a survival story. In some ways, it really is. And of course, it's dramatic women's fiction.
Now, since you've written so many, was it difficult to create and craft such unique and complicated sisterly characters, or did that kind of come easily to you?
The sisters are very authentic to me. I have had this story in my mind for a very long time. And no spoiler here, carlyrae, but at the very beginning, Maribel, the eldest of the three Burrows sisters, her husband drowned in the Intracoastal within the first few pages. And this is a story of what unravels and what surfaces once Samuel's gone.
Now, Maribel's Shadow is filled with the twists, turns, and secrets. So was it hard for you to keep all the twists and turns straight while writing this book?
I always know with my fiction the beginning and the end. And then the trick is how to tell the story to get us there. So I'm very interested in surprise endings. And the reason I do that is I think for women, so much of what happens to us, young women, older women, what happens to us is a surprise. And even though we're raised as good girls, we really end up being shocked by how it plays out as wives and mothers and sisters and friends and rivals. And so I wanted a very dicey story with some real challenges for the women.
Now, did you read a lot of books in the genre for any inspiration, or you kind of had it all set out?
I had it all set out, but I do read a lot of genre books, and I love reading women's fiction, and I so admire women novelists, literary, commercial. This has been described as dramatic women's fiction, if we're going to categorize it.
Now, is there one chapter you can't wait to get readers' reaction on, or that you have gotten the reaction on?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. I wrote this book in the three different sisters' voices. So we go back and forth between Maribel, Caroline, and Raleigh's point of view. And of course, they come from again, no spoiler, but they have a very different background than the one that they've achieved as they made money. And so, I feel that each chapter is a bit of, a cliffhanger where we say, well, really, what will happen next? That's really the intention.
So, what are you most excited for readers to read in Maribel Shadow? Is it the overall plot, meeting these characters, reading the twists?
How much we understand and forgive the characters, because each sister really has an agenda. And yet, as women in contemporary society, now sort of my gender hat, we're really looking at how we're positioned and what we do, what risks and we take for what rewards, and how do women navigate a path in a very patriarchal culture. And so Lucinda, the mother in this story, is a pretty gutsy woman. And that mattered to me greatly because their father died and she is the matriarch. And it's interesting to see power. And then what is longing for women? What do we long for? And how do we get it? And what steps do we take to achieve, our dreams?
Let's talk about your writing. You are a best-selling author with numerous novels. What's your favorite genre you write in?
I love writing both novels and nonfiction books. For each nonfiction book, I interview several hundred women to find out how they feel as mothers-in-law, daughters-in-law, wives, single women, as I said before, rivals, foes, best friends, enemies, sisters. So I love hearing real women's voices. Just for example, recently my 30-year study on female infidelity called A Passion for More was the inspiration and was optioned for iHeartRadio for She Wants More, which was their series on, their podcasts on female infidelity. And it was really thrilling to hear the women, anonymity guaranteed, but the women talking about how they felt as lovers and, women who are in marriages or longstanding monogamous relationships, young women in their 20s to women in their 80s. So of course, that's the nonfiction aspect of my career. And then what I've learned researching how women truly feel, I put into my fiction.
Wow, that's really interesting. I think you're the first author I've ever interviewed that actually has said they go out and interview all those people. But it is a good point. I think it gives you more authentic voice too in writing.
It totally does. And the other part of it, CarlyRae, is I think that, when you look at what happens in Maribel's life, we'll take our main character. We understand it because we relate to it, and we relate to it because it's true. So even though it's a fictional, it's fiction and it's fictional, it's also reflective of how women feel.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah. Well, walk us through a day in your life, like when you are writing. Do you wake up early and write? Do you like writing late at night or in a coffee shop or at home?
Well, as I told you, for over 23 years I taught at Marymount Manhattan until the pandemic. And now I'm a full-time writer, which is just incredible. And so was the teaching, though. And I really loved my students. And so I would get up very early, like 6 a.m., swim at 7 a.m., be at my desk at 8 a.m., and in a classroom by 8:30 to start the class. Teach all morning, do some advisement, and write all afternoon. But for me, a day without writing is not as happy a day. And if I have meetings, or if I'm being interviewed, or if I'm actually seeing friends walking through a museum, which I don't do too much because of my writing and and the teaching for all those years, any day without actually getting words onto paper or onto the screen is a day that doesn't make me as happy. So I'll write whenever I can. I guess that's the long answer to your short question.
Yeah. Now, how long did it take you to craft Maribel Shadow?
Maribel Shadow took a little longer than most books. For this book, I had written it, I had started it many years ago. And so the story of what happens to these three sisters after Samuel dies has been with me for so many years. And so, excuse me, I finished it about a year ago. And then the publisher asked me if I would make certain changes in voice, not in, so in terms of tense. And so I actually rewrote parts of it. So it took a little longer. So maybe almost 2 years.
Now, when you say tense, do you mean like present tense or?
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah. So the book was written in present tense, and my new publisher wanted it in past tense. And I talked to my writing group about it, and I talked to my agent, and I decided to go for it. And I'm so glad that I listened. For anyone who's, watching us, listening to us today, I think it's important to share with other writers and readers that, sometimes an editor's idea will so improve your story. And I know that my writing group, after they said to me, "Oh, Susan, you don't need to do that. Oh, Susannah, you don't need to do that." And then I said, "I'm going to do it. I'm willing to try it. I think I need to be open." They said, "Oh, you've written all these books." I said, No, I think she's making a salient point, the editor.
Hmm.
And I did it, and I brought it back to my group first. I've been in this writing group for 12 years. And everyone said, "Oh, yes, totally." So there you have it. This
Yeah.
really works better.
Yeah. And it's good just to like try something too. Like you never know.
I agree with you, to be open-minded.
Yeah. Now, to craft your characters and setting, do you do outlines and character worksheets? Like, how do you kind of go through and develop all of that?
I do. But I'm a very structured person. And as I said, I've been teaching, essay writing for so many years that I feel very strongly that the more that you have a paradigm, the easier it is to fill it in. I know some writers, and I've writing friends who will say, "Oh, I sit down and the characters just come to me." I feel that they do come to me, but I'd like to document how they are and what they do ahead of time.
Yeah, and I found like I took a storytelling class at Harvard this past semester, and we had to do the character outlines, and I'd never done that before, and it actually made a huge difference. Like it kind of allows you to think about the characters in a different dynamic before you write.
Did you like it better?
Yeah, I actually did. I actually found I like knew my characters more. So like when I went to write, I was like, oh, I know like this is what she'd do or this is what she wouldn't do. So yeah, it kind of gave me a new perspective on that.
Well, what's interesting in Maribel's Shadow and my other novels is that there's so much that doesn't get to the page. As we say in screenwriting, it's off screen, but it's there. I can tell you the name of Maribel's favorite puppy, but it's certainly, when the family got, 3 puppies at once, but it's not in the book, but it's there. I think the richness and the layering of these details and experiences of the characters really adds to the book.
Yeah. Now, did you always want to be an author?
Oh, yeah. I was like 6 years old a long time ago. And I was handwriting newspapers, making like 5 sets, for my uncles, my aunts, my parents, and charging for them to, I've been motivated to be a writer. I mean, I chose the college I went to. I earned my master's in writing. I have always known, and I love journalism too, but I really love narrative nonfiction and fiction. And I
I was curious, will there be a sequel to Maribel's Shadow? Will readers get that?
I think there might be. It's certainly in the offing. As I mentioned before, I'm known for my surprise endings. So, that really adds something to, the idea that you can go forward. And because I love the characters, if I say so myself, it would be fine to be with them for longer.
Yeah. Now, before I let you go, share with us and viewers where they can find you on social media.
So you can go to Instagram, Facebook. I have a website that you can find by going to susannahmarren.com. And I love to hear from readers. And I love to do, virtual book clubs, visits. Just love to interact with women and with women's readers.
Yeah. And I will put all of the links to Susannah's website and all of her handles are in the description below. But you heard Susannah. Go check out her latest novel, Maribel's Shadow. Thank you all so much for joining me on this episode of Book Hour. Tune in next week for an all-new episode. In the meantime, you can stay up to date on all things Hey, It's Carly Rae on social media at HeyitsCarlyRae.com. Thank you so much, Susannah.
Thank you so much, Carly Rae.